Funko to sell on the website. And that's what they did. They didn't have to worry about Funko saying, "Oh well, we won't have we won't have we won't have any more Lunas or Celestias until this time of year, or until this time next year, or this time next quarter." No, they were up. Funko was up and ready to send more and distribute more to places like Hot Topic for Hot Topic to sell for a profit. So that's the biggest difference is between Nintendo and Funko is Funko had supply on demand ready. Nintendo did not. They did not, in a sense, when you think about it. But you might say, well, how does this tie into the whole scalpers situation, bro? To the whole scalpers and people selling these things for a lot higher than they should be. Well, it's real simple. You see, if you notice the selling of the Funko vinyl figures of the main six, from Applejack, Rarity to Pinkie Pie maybe, and Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash, and maybe even Twilight, they sell maybe a little bit more than they should, but they sell for not as much. Okay, they don't sell as much as Luna and Celestia. Why? Because Luna and Celestia are not in all the episodes. It's like I said earlier. You take a look at all the episodes between these 7 seasons. How many times has there been episodes? How many of the episodes has Luna and Celestia been in most of the time? How many of those 100 plus episodes has Luna and Celestia been in? Not that many. They've not been the focal point of many of them. Yes, they've made appearances. Yes, they've done this. Yes, they've done that. But they haven't always been there front and center. Okay? They haven't always been there. Which is why it makes it ultra... Which is why when the Funko vinyl figures of these came out, despite, let's say, Funko having enough supply to send to the retailers that sell the product, like, let's say, Hot Topic, they also... like Hot Topic. The one thing about Luna and Celestia's Funko vinyl figures that, like I say, have something in common with this is they're ultra rare, but because the characters are not always on screen. They're not always there. Yes, they have the moments when they do get on screen, but they're not always there. And that to me, folks, tells me right then and there, why things like this get sold for a lot more than they're originally priced at. Because of the fact that the characters are not always on the show every episode or every issue of a comic or whatever. And 2, the fact that if you know something like this may be discontinued or may not come or be released with the newest wave of figures, then you know there's a reason for that, and that reasoning is they're probably very rare, or in this case, ultra rare, super rare. Just like this card, they are ultra super rare, and they're gonna cost a pretty penny because you don't see them out there that much. Do you go to a game? When these were out at GameStop? Did you go to GameStop and see them there a lot? No. Did you go to Toys R Us when they were out and see these out there a lot? See these out there as much as the other Funko figures? No. Best Buy? Not really. Hot Topic? Seem to be selling out a lot. When it comes to Celestia or Luna. The point is, in my opinion, the reason Celestia and Luna are priced a lot more than they should be, heck, a lot more than the main 6 are in the Funko vinyl figures, is because they're like the Dark Magician Girl Dragon Knight. They don't appear as much, and thus, in the eyes of the sellers, the people that are selling them, whether third party or whatever, they are ultra rare. And now, especially with the fact that the series is being discontinued by Funko, it makes them even more ultra rare, because, like I said, once all the sellers out there finish selling their supply of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Funko vinyl figures, once they finish distributing them or selling them off to the customers, that's it. There will be no more. That's why these go for a pretty penny. I know some people may not agree with that, but that's the way it is. And you might say it's kind of scalping, and I agree, maybe it does sound like the scalping. But let me ask you this. Again, let me ask you this. Do you see these as much as you do any other Funko figures out there? No, you don't. Okay, you don't. Let me tell you this. What if they did full-size Funko vinyl figures of Guardians of the Galaxy? Okay? Let me tell you this. Let me tell you honestly. If they did full-size Funko vinyl figures of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and two of the primary ones people wanted to get were Gamora and Star-Lord. Okay? Two of the primary ones people wanted to get were Gamora and Star-Lord. Do you think, honestly, do you think, honestly, those would be around if those were basically the ones that people those were the ones people sought after? Of course not. The moment those two came out, they'd be sold out in a second. And yeah, Funko would probably have more on demand and ready to go, but they keep getting sold and sold and sold. Why? Because they are the two most popular characters, primary characters of Guardians of the Galaxy. Same with Groot. If they decide to do something with Groot, same thing. The point is, folks, that even if they were to do that, and yes, and let's say they would probably have some on demand and ready to go just in case they sold out, it still shows you the popularity. And then let's say they decide to discontinue them, just like they do with My Little Pony, then you know Gamora, Groot, and Star-Lord would probably be the most expensive out there to purchase, because they'd be the first ones sold, they'd be the most sought after, and people would want them, and they'd probably end up in the same category as Luna and Celestia. Now, I'm not saying that what sellers are doing with Celestia and Luna's vinyl figures, pricing them at a lot higher than they should be, is right. I'm not saying it is. But there's another old saying, I think I mentioned this, that if you buy something, you purchase it with your own money, it's yours, right? So basically, if it's yours, then you have 100% control over it, and thus you have a 100% control to do whatever you want with it. Yeah, people may not agree with your methods, like, oh, well, I got the NES Classic for $69-$70, or $59. Now I'm going to sell it for $100. I'm going to sell it for $40 more for $100 instead of $59, or I'm going to sell it for $200 something more instead of $69 or $59. And as much as we may not agree with that, and yes, it's wrong to jack up the price for something that's very limited, if they own it, that's their right. I will say this, however. I think what Nintendo, Funko, or any other company out there needs to do, game console, pop culture, whatever, what they need to do, if they bring out systems like that, is they need to, what's the saying? What's the saying? They need to come up with a system that lets them know whether or not someone's purchasing something just for themselves or to sell online for a pretty penny. Like, for example, when it comes to the NES Classic, maybe they should have decided, maybe they should have put in a rule that only one could be purchased by a customer. Just one. Even if they're in a group, even if it's a group of people, and one person's paying for it, the limitation should be just one sold, not as many as people will buy. It should just be one sold. And if you notice people want to buy more and more and more, then you ask the question, then what an employee should do is ask them, and what the employee should do, maybe even the assistant manager or whatever should come up and ask them is, okay, are you buying these each for yourselves to play at home? Or are you buying these to sell online for a pretty penny? Because if you can ask them straight out if they're going to basically scalp, I think that would deter them to be like, hand over the NES Classics or whatever and say, okay, fine, We get it. But that was Nintendo's fault not to probably put it in that. That was Nintendo's fault to not put in that stipulation. That's my opinion. My opinion. And the same with anything, like game companies, collectible pop culture companies, whatever, nostalgia companies, what have you. They should at least do something like that. But again, so that way people could have a fair chance, a fair shake. But again, the old saying goes, despite whether we agree with it or not, if you own it, you can do whatever you want with it. So, just like this one guy on YouTube bought two big boxes worth of one being the Lunas and one being the Celestias. If he's bought those with his own money, then he has the right to do whatever he wants with them. Even if he just wants to get one thing out of them, he has a right to do whatever he wants with the rest of them. We either sell them, keep them, whatever. I'm just saying. We may not agree with it. I'll be honest, I'm not happy that the NES Classic, because the NES Classic was being scalped or is being scalped by people. I don't like that. Never will. Because, I wanted to get an NES Classic, but never could. Hopefully, maybe I still could try. But I didn't like the fact that they were taking something that they pretty much knew could just be very limited time only, or seasonal, and take it away from people just because they want to be jackasses. To me, I didn't like that. I really didn't. But when it comes to something like this, yeah, I agree. Maybe they shouldn't sell it for a lot more than it was. I don't agree with that method. But here's the thing. The difference, like I said, as strange as it sounds, is this wasn't in the same category as the NES Classic. It wasn't seasonal. It wasn't limited in quantity. There was plenty enough to go. Plenty out there to go. Same with this. But the only problem is the only thing though is Funko didn't distribute as many outside of online purchasing for physical purchase in stores because they knew there might be scalpers. So Funko played it smart there. And they also realized that since these characters don't get seen as much, that they don't have to worry about putting them in another wave. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, Brian. I went online and I got Cadence for a lot cheaper than this. Well, it's because Cadence is seen a lot more than Celestia and Luna. So, to me, there's somewhat of a difference. I think if the character is seen more and used more, the character, the figure based on that character, especially if it's a collectible vinyl figure, won't go for as much as others will. But if that character is not seen as much, then that's a big difference. And I think that's why Luna and Celestia went up for the prices that they did. But that's really all I have to say. I know it sounds strange, and I know this video went into a couple parts that I do apologize. But to me, that is why Luna and Celestia's Funko vinyl figures are priced the way they are. Yes, it's wrong, but here's the thing. The differences are, they're not like the NES Classic. They were not limited, they were not seasonal, or whatever you want to call it. They had unlimited supply. Secondly, they're basically in the same category as, let's say, this Dark Magician Girl Dragon Knight card. You don't see it as much, right? Even though you know it could be distributed or redistributed at any time, because Konami has enough copies of these. They probably do, and they're not saying. They're very, you don't, like I said, you don't see it as much, despite maybe there's enough to go around. There's enough to be distributed and go around. The reason you don't see it as much is because it's rare. It's because you don't see the character or the fusion or whatever as much as you do everybody else. And that's basically the same, and that's why, like I said, Luna and Celestia's figures fit into that category. They're like the super, ultra rare cards that you want to get and you know is out, you know exist, but you can't get because they're not there. But you can't get despite as hard as you try because they're very ultra rare cards. And that's the same way with these. Despite the fact that there's many of these going around, it's hard to get them, which is why when people do get them, they jack them up a little bit because it's like, well, I don't really need it, but I know people would like to get it. There you go. Same with these. I know it sounds confusing, and I know it sounded like I rambled, but you know what? The way I look at it is there's a difference. Is there somewhat of a difference? Not much. But one thing I will say in the end is if people are going to sell one of their copies or something like this, let's be honest guys, don't sell them for jacked up prices. Yes, if people got the money, let me put it this way folks, if you've got the money to go out and buy the figure for the price that's being sold at, more power to you. That's what I did. I waited till I had the money, I took care of what I had to take care of, and I bought the figure. That's what I did. That's what I did. That's what I did when I got Luna several weeks ago, about a month ago or so. That's what I did today with finally getting Celestia. The thing is, if you got the money, go out and do it. Okay? But if you don't have the money, don't worry about it. There's always other possibilities. And sometimes all you have to do is wait. Because sometimes they might lower the price. Nice. Or you just wait until you have the money to get it. Yeah, you may not like the fact that you had to pay so much in the end, but you'll say, you know what? It's once in a while. I may not be able to do this again. So there you go. It's like ultimately treating yourself to something that you know you may never have access again to. And that's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. You know, and again, some people may disagree with me, and many of you will. But again, like I said, at the end of this, let's be honest, folks. The one thing that really sticks in our craw when it comes to these kind of things happening, whether we agree with them or we don't, is if you own it, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay? If you own a TurboGrafx 16 and you want to sell it for a pretty price because you know it's a collector's item and people are going to want it, that's your decision. If you own a PS4 and you want to sell it for a lot more or a lot less than you paid for, that's your decision. Same with the Xbox One. You know, it's your decision. You know, if you want to sell for a lot more than you paid for or a lot less. And that's the decision. As much as it sticks in our craw, that old saying of, if you own something, if you bought it with your money, and you own it, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay? And that's the flat out truth. That's why when this person probably got this, and maybe got another copy of it, they figured, well, I got two, I'll just sell this for a lot more because I know it's ultra rare and people are going to want it. And that's what they did. Instead of selling it for maybe what its actual retail price is, they decided, you know what, I'm just going to sell this for a lot more. And that's what they did because they know it's ultra rare. That was their decision. They could do that. They have the right. Do we agree with that sometimes? Absolutely not. But what are you going to do? But anyway, the way I look at it, that's why Celestia and Luna's figures are going for as much as they are. Because of the fact that, one, the people have the right to sell them for as much as they want, for a lot more or a lot less than what they purchased. And secondly, the kind of